Hi everybody, today I would like to talk to you about being an active interviewee. Now what does that mean exactly? I talk about this a lot to my clients about being an active interviewee, and it's a concept that not a lot of people have thought about when they think about going to their visa interview. The majority of visa applicants think about going into their visa interview as a passive process. They go in expecting to be asked questions by the visa officer, and then they're going to give the answers to the best of their knowledge or to the best of their preparation. And then the visa officer is going to make a decision. People unrealistically expect that the visa officer is very invested in their personal visa application. They think that the visa officer cares as much about their visa application as they do, but that's just simply not the case. The visa officers are doing 100, sometimes even 200 of these visa interviews per day. And their primary concern is making a decision as quickly as possible and moving on. They're not going to ask you a lot of questions, especially if you don't give them a reason to ask. So some people go in, and very unfortunately, the visa officer asks one question, two questions, and then they refuse them. Now, why might that happen? Well, maybe those questions weren't the questions that you wanted them to ask. Maybe you wanted them to ask about your parents' business, but they never did. They just asked if you took a loan out, right? Now, to be an active interviewee means that what you're going to do is you're going to lead that conversation from the interviewee side, right? The interviewer has to ask the questions, but as the interviewee, you can give whatever answers you want. You can give as much information as you want or as little information, right? You can give as much context as you want or as little context. So what I tell my clients to do is to listen to the question that's being asked by the interviewer, the visa officer. Listen to their question. But then when you give your answer, make sure you're giving them the information that you know that you want to give them. The information that you know that they need, that they don't have yet. They've asked you a question, they've stopped talking, and they've given you an opportunity to speak. So now it's your turn. It's your turn to convince them, to put that information out there so that they can have the best information possible when they're making that decision about your visa, right? Let me give you an example. When the visa officer asks you, let's say you're a student, right? The visa officer asks you, well, what do your parents do? Well, some visa applicants may just say business. This doesn't tell the visa officer anything, right? Business could be anything. It could be anything from selling eggs on the street to owning the country's largest petroleum company, right? So saying that your parents do business doesn't really tell the visa officer anything about you. They don't see you in a new light, right? They don't understand your situation any more fully. That's a passive answer, right? Now, an active answer, being an active interviewee, what does that sound like? Well, it sounds something more like this. What do your parents do? My father owns a business. It's actually a factory, and he has over 36 employees. He's owned this factory since the 1990s. He was the original founder of the business. On top of that, our family owns 3 apartment buildings in the city. We live in one of them and we rent out the others that we get another amount of income. That apartment building is worth X amount of dollars. On top of that, my older brother, after graduating, started an engineering firm, and he's doing design and due diligence on infrastructure projects for the government. Right? Okay, so that was just completely made up. However, you get what I'm saying there. What you do is you think, okay, the visa officer has asked me this question. What do they really want to know? The visa officer asked me, what do my parents do? Well, it's not because he needs to, check a box and say, I know what this person's parents do. It's because he's trying to see what's the situation that I'm in here in my own country. What's the situation that my family's in? Like, how stable are we? What are our financial prospects, right? So when I hear that, what do your parents do, that question, I know what I need to tell him or her on the other side of that window. I need to tell them about what my family's finances are like. Now, maybe that has to do with my parents' jobs. Maybe it has to do with my parents' investments, right? Maybe it has to do with my grandparents, if they're still the primary, the patriarch of the family that owns the business. There's some information that they're wanting, and you need to figure out what that is and give that to them. Be an active visa applicant.